My name is Catherine Burnett, and for most of my adult life, I truly believed I had a good sense of judgment, especially when it came to the people I let into my heart. Jason Hale was the person I trusted most, my boyfriend of 4 years, my partner, my supposed future. We both had stable careers, shared an apartment we adored, and spent late nights talking about saving for a home, maybe even starting a family down the line. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet, steady life built on honesty. Or so I thought. If you'd told me months ago that my life would unravel over something as deceptively innocent as a glowing phone screen at 2 a.m., I probably would have laughed. But that's where this begins, tiny cracks in the foundation that I didn't notice until they were too wide to ignore. It started subtly, a bank alert here, a lower than expected statement there. No/thing dramatic. I honestly thought it was my error at first. I'm the kind of person who keeps receipts, organizes folders, color codes, budgets. I don't miss things. But somehow I had missed something important. Our joint savings account should have had just over $42,000. We each contributed $800 every month. Easy math, predictable, safe. But when I logged in one quiet Thursday night after Jason had already fallen asleep, the number staring back at me made my stomach drop. $27,000, $15,000 gone. I stared at the screen so long my eyes dried out. I blinked, refreshed the page, logged out and back in. But those missing digits didn't magically appear. My pulse hammered against my ribs as I clicked through transactions. At first it didn't make sense. Little withdrawals, $200 here, $500 there, $1,000 once. Then the pattern hit me like a brick. Vegas Dream, Lucky Slots, BetMax Gaming, online gambling. I had seen those names before, ads on social media pop-ups. Little flashy temptations, but never in a million years did I imagine I'd see them draining our savings, our future. My throat tightened. I sat there in the glow of the laptop, listening to Jason's soft breathing from the bedroom. And for the first time since we met, I felt something I had never associated with him. Fear. Not fear that he would hurt me. No. Fear that everything I loved was built on a lie I had been too naive to catch. I confronted him the next morning. "Jason," I whispered, holding the statements printed out like evidence in a courtroom. "We need to talk." He looked at the papers, then at me. His face drained of color instantly. His hands shook as he read. That was the moment I knew he wasn't surprised. He already knew everything I was about to say. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "Catherine, I'm so sorry." "What is this?" My voice cracked. $15,000, Jason, what happened? He broke, just shattered. Tears, shaking shoulders, rambling apologies. He told me it had started small $10 bets, $20 spins. Harmless. Just to unwind, he said. Just to feel something fun. Then he won $2,000 one night. Thought he'd found a shortcut to financial freedom. Classic gambler logic. He swore he was ashamed. Swore he wanted to stop. Swore he'd get help. He begged me not to tell anyone, not his friends, not his parents. They'd never understand, he whispered. They'd think I'm pathetic. And the part that still frustrates me, I believed him. Because love is stupid like that. It makes you think trust can fix things that are way beyond your control. So I did what I thought was responsible. I moved the remaining savings into an account only I could access. I set up new cards. I placed restrictions on spending. I gave Jason a weekly allowance, $200. Enough for lunch, coffee, little personal things. Enough for dignity while he recovered. I locked away the credit cards connected to joint funds. He agreed to all of it. Actually seemed relieved. "I need boundaries," he said. "Thank you for helping me." And for 5 days I believed him. 5 whole days, where he played the role of the contrite partner attending online addiction counseling. Going to work, hugging me a little tighter at night. 5 days where the house felt calmer, like fresh air after a storm. But there was something in his eyes, this flicker, this shadow, that unsettled me. Something like resentment simmering beneath the remorse. I brushed it off, told myself I was imagining things. I wasn't. On the 5th night, as I sat at the dining table reading emails, my phone buzzed. A message from our friend group chat. I glanced at it without thinking, then froze. "Can we talk about financial abuse in relationships?" Followed by asking for a friend who isn't allowed to access her own money. My blood ran cold. My first thought was, it's a coincidence, but deep down I knew better. Then more messages, then more. Then, Jason replied in the chat, "Thanks for the support, guys. It's been really hard. I'm not allowed to have my own credit card. He gives me an allowance like I'm a child. I feel trapped. He. I stared at the screen so long my vision blurred. Jason was in the bedroom door closed. He had been there for an hour. This wasn't panic or impulse. This was a setup. I didn't defend myself, not immediately. Instead, I sat very still processing the realization that the man I loved, who swore he was ashamed, who promised he wanted help, had chosen to paint me as a monster. A controlling, financially abusive partner. And he knew exactly how people would react. He knew they'd believe him. In the chat, messages exploded like fireworks, accusations, outrage, disgust. Friends I'd known for years calling me controlling, manipulative, abusive. Some messages I recognized. Others came from people I barely knew. Not one person asked for my side. Not one. I felt something inside me snap. Not anger, not panic. Clarity. If Jason wanted to turn this into a public narrative, I would answer publicly with facts, not accusations. I logged into our bank accounts, saved 8 months of statements, highlighted every gambling withdrawal, gathered screenshots of the gambling login from our shared laptop he never logged out, included the messages where he promised he'd stop. I created a PDF. Then I waited, watched the chat tear me apart. Let Jason dig himself deeper. At midnight, when the chaos finally slowed, I posted it. Since we're discussing financial abuse, here is the full context. Then I put my phone on silent, turned off the light, went to bed. In the morning, there were 156 unread messages. And that was only the beginning. The morning after I posted the PDF, I woke up before my alarm, heart pounding, as if it already knew what waited for me. For a moment, I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the glow of my phone, lighting up the nightstand like a warning signal. 156 unread messages. Jason wasn't in the apartment. His side of the bed was cold, perfectly still, as if he hadn't slept there at all. A part of me felt relief. A larger part felt dread. Because disappearing was exactly the kind of cowardly move he'd make after setting a fire he wasn't prepared to face. I opened the group chat. Silence. Not a single message after my PDF. The last one was my post at 12:03 a.m. Since we're discussing financial abuse, here is the full context. I scrolled up. Dozens of texts from people I considered friends, some defending Jason, others condemning me, without hesitation, all convinced I was the villain of Jason's carefully curated story. Now, complete silence. It was the kind of silence that made it clear they weren't ignoring me. They were stunned, shattered, rewriting every assumption they'd made the night before. Then finally, one message popped up. Tyler, holy crap. Catherine, this is a lot. Then the dam broke. Wait, this can't be real. Jason, you lost $15,000. Why didn't you tell us? Damn, is this actually happening? Notifications flashed so quickly I couldn't keep up. Then came the one I expected and dreaded. Mara Lindsley, Jason's ex, the queen of passive-aggressive feminism when convenient. Mara posting. Private financial information is still controlling. This isn't healthy conflict resolution. This is revenge. I exhaled sharply through my nose. Of course. Mara was always waiting for her moment to strike, especially when it came to me. She hated that Jason chose me after her, hated that I became the stable relationship he bragged about. She smelled blood now. Before I could even process her accusation, another message came in, this time from Jason. Of course. Jason. It's out of context. She's twisting things. I wasn't gambling that much. My jaw clenched. $15,000, not that much. He continued, this is why I couldn't talk to her. She monitors everything. I felt suffocated. I made mistakes, but I was never allowed to feel like an adult. I let out a slow, shaky breath. It was happening. Jason wasn't just lying. He was doubling down, turning his shame into a weapon and stabbing me with it in front of everyone. And Mara, she was ready to help him twist the blade. Mara Jason. Thank you for sharing that. Addiction isn't an excuse for abuse. You deserve support, not surveillance. Support. This was the same woman who once cried in a bar bathroom because Jason forgot her birthday, but now she was standing on a moral pedestal painting him as some fragile victim. Friends chimed in, some cautiously, some aggressively, some confused and unsure which side to take. The gambling withdrawals look bad, but Catherine posting all this, isn't this like too extreme, Jason? You should have told us you were struggling. Catherine, this is wild. Why didn't you just talk to someone privately? My pulse throbbed in my temples. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone, but I didn't. Because the truth was simple. Jason made it public first. I just responded in the language he chose. I set the phone down and walked into the kitchen. Tried to make coffee. My hands were trembling so badly the ground spilled across the counter. It took me 2 tries to steady myself. I had just finished wiping the mess when the apartment door unlocked. Jason walked in. I stopped breathing. He looked terrible eyes, red hair, a mess. Same clothes as yesterday. For a split second, my heart twitched. The old instinct to comfort him tried to surface. Then I remembered the messages. And that instinct died. He dropped his keys, barely glanced at me, and walked straight to the bedroom. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to talk to me. Explain something. Apologize. Anything. But no. He grabbed a duffel bag, stuffed clothes into it without looking at me, without a word. As if I wasn't standing right there. As if he was the victim in all this. I followed him to the hall. You're leaving. He zipped the bag. I need space. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. Space. Or an audience. Because you seem to love performing for one. That got his attention. He finally turned. His expression was cold. Everyone thinks you're unhinged. I stepped closer. Only because you lied. You posted private documents, Catherine. You humiliated me. My voice cracked with disbelief. You humiliated me first. You made me out to be abusive, financially controlling, and you did it intentionally. He flinched, just barely, but he flinched. Good. Look, he said softer now. I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to tell people. I needed support. So you invented a villain. He didn't answer. We stared at each other for a long moment, 4 years of shared memories collapsing between us. Then he slung the bag over his shoulder. I'm staying with friends for a while. Friends. Translation with Mara's circle, the people who already hated me enough to swallow any lie he fed them. He walked out. The door closed. The silence was deafening. I stood there alone, heart pounding, fingers numb around the coffee mug still in my hand. And that's when I realized it. Jason wasn't sorry. He was cornered. And cornered people don't seek redemption. They seek defense. I picked up my phone. New messages from the group chat were pouring in. Debates. Accusations. Some defending him. Some confused. Some finally questioning why Jason, if he was so controlled, had access to so many gambling apps in the first place. But the one message that chilled me came from a private DM, not the group chat, from Mara's husband, Daniel. Daniel, hey. You don't know me well, but I need to tell you something before this gets worse. Jason is lying, and he hasn't stopped gambling. I stared at the message. The room felt like it tilted beneath my feet. Worse was coming. Much worse. Daniel's message sat on my screen like a bomb with no timer, just ticking silence. I reread it 3 times, my pulse hammering in my ears. Jason is lying, and he hasn't stopped gambling. I swallowed hard and typed back, Me, what do you mean? His reply came almost instantly, as if he'd been waiting for me to respond. Daniel. He's been gambling every night since he came to stay with us. I saw an $800 bet yesterday. Mara doesn't know. She thinks he's recovering. I don't want to get involved, but you need to know. My stomach twisted. Of course Jason didn't stop. Of course the tears and apologies had been just damage control, not recovery. I thanked Daniel politely and formally, as if I wasn't internally collapsing. And then I did what trauma-trained, boundary-resistant, emotionally exhausted women do. I documented everything. Screenshots, timestamps, messages, his posts, his lies, all of it. If Jason wanted a war of narratives, then I would be damned if I entered the battlefield unarmed. For the next few days, chaos bled into every part of my life. My phone vibrated constantly. Friends, acquaintances, co-workers, people who had no business being involved, all offering opinions I didn't ask for. Some sent cautious texts like, Hey, saw the chat, are you okay? Wow, that was intense. Hope things settle down. I'm staying neutral, but yeah, rough. But then there were others. People who had always gravitated toward drama like moths to a flame. People who loved a good victim story even if they didn't question its truth. Catherine, honestly, controlling someone's spending is abuse. Jason seems like he was really hurting. Posting his personal financial info was too far. That PDF was petty. Petty. Right, because allowing someone to destroy your name is the mature choice. But I didn't argue. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. Not yet. I learned something in the last few days. Silence unnerves liars more than shouting ever will. Meanwhile, Jason was turning himself into a sympathy magnet. He didn't say a word in the group chat anymore, smart move on his part, but privately, he was spreading his carefully rewritten version of our life like a wildfire. I saw screenshots. Jason, yeah. I gambled a little, but she overreacted. She cut me off financially without warning. She controlled every dollar. I felt suffocated. He admitted the truth only in the safest, smallest doses. Minimize the crime, maximize the victimhood, flip the script. It was almost impressive in a purely psychological sense. His ex Mara was predictably invested. She messaged our mutual friends one by one, nurturing their outrage with subtlety. It's complicated, but Jason deserves support. I've seen Catherine be controlling before. He told me things back when we dated. I knew something was off. She was a master at implication, never outright accusing, never saying anything she couldn't walk back, just planting seeds. Toxic seeds, seeds that sprouted weeds. At work, things got worse. HR pulled me aside for a wellness check, giving me careful, sympathetic looks like I was a fragile glass figurine about to shatter. Someone, because of course someone had reported that I might be experiencing emotional instability due to relationship conflict. Translation: Jason told someone, or someone in the friend group did. I had to explain calmly and professionally that everything was under control, but the pitying nods, the awkward silence in the break room, the subtle looks when I walked by, those things hurt more than I expected. Because people weren't seeing me. They were seeing Jason's version of me, and that was humiliating. A week passed, then 9 days, then 11. By day 12, several friends had quietly drifted away. No dramatic exits, no accusations, just silence, distance, unfollowing the group chat, declining hangouts, busy schedules. People don't like controversy. They don't like being wrong. They don't like messy truths. It's easier to fade out than confront the fact that they believed a lie. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just losing Jason. I was losing my entire support circle. All because he couldn't own his mistakes. But the breaking point came on day 13. Daniel messaged again. Daniel, Catherine, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you. He asked us for $1 and $200 today. Said he needed rent money. Mara wants to give it to him. I don't know what to do. My jaw clenched. I didn't respond. It wasn't my circus anymore. But the message was proof, crystal clear. Proof that Jason wasn't stopping. That he'd already sunk deeper than I realized. And he would take down anyone who tried to help him. That night I made a decision. A hard one, a cold one, a necessary one. I opened my laptop, found the online form, filled it out, attached the documents I'd been compiling. Then I pressed submit. I filed for divorce. Yes, we weren't married yet in the original script, but the dynamic was identical. A shared life, shared finances, shared future. So in this version, we were legally tied. And now I was choosing to end that tie before he dragged me underwater with him. The next morning at 9:12 a.m., Jason was served. And within minutes, my phone rang. His name flashed across the screen. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But something inside me, curiosity, closure, defiance, I don't know, made me click accept. He didn't say hello. He screamed, "You filed for divorce. You're abandoning me while I'm sick." I closed my eyes, holding the phone away slightly. His voice was shrill, desperate, drowning in self-pity. "Jason," I said quietly, "you didn't stop gambling. You don't know what I'm going through. You lied about me. You turned our friends against me. You're still gambling in someone else's home." "That's not the point." "It is. You're heartless," he hissed. "Cold, cruel. No one will believe you in court. You'll regret this." For a moment, I felt the familiar sting of guilt. Old instinct, old patterns, old Catherine. But then I remembered the $15,000, the lies, the group chat, the humiliation, the silence, the judgment, the pity, the abandonment. And the guilt vanished. "I'm done, Jason," I said softly but firmly. "You made your choices. Now I'm making mine." He hung up, just like that. And I stood in the center of my living room. Empty, quiet, sunlight streaming through the blinds, feeling the strangest thing. Not devastation, not fear, not anger. Relief. This part of the story wasn't over. But the part of me that still believed Jason could change, that part died the moment I filed the papers. The courthouse echoed with a kind of coldness no heater could fix. The floors were polished, the walls pale, and everything felt sterile, indifferent to the lives being dissected inside its rooms. I sat beside my attorney, a composed woman named Rachel Vaughn, who had the uncanny ability to read people the way surgeons read x-rays. Jason arrived late. Of course he did. When he walked into the hallway outside the courtroom, several heads turned. He looked curated, clean-shaven, crisp button-down, hair neatly combed, the precise image of a hurt, misunderstood man trying his best. He wouldn't dare walk in as the reckless gambler I knew. He wanted an audience, and he dressed for the role. His eyes flicked toward me, cold, sharp, practiced, but I caught something underneath. Fear. Real fear. Good. We entered the courtroom, and for once I felt no obligation to take on the emotional weight he always tried to dump on me. The temporary orders hearing began not a full trial, but the judge wanted clarity. About finances, about living arrangements, about the truth. Jason's attorney, a polished man with an overly dramatic voice, stood up first. "Your Honor," he began, "my client has been suffering severe emotional trauma due to the restrictive environment his spouse created. He was denied financial autonomy, monitored daily, and controlled in a manner that constitutes financial abuse." Rachel didn't flinch. I didn't either. Jason lowered his head just slightly, perfecting his image of a fragile, shaken man. I felt my stomach twist, not out of guilt, but awe at how well he performed. His attorney continued, "Due to this emotional distress, my client has not been able to maintain his work hours and is struggling financially. We request temporary spousal support of $2,000 per month coverage of legal fees and access to the marital assets that Ms. Burnett has restricted." A punchline disguised as a plea. The judge turned to Jason. "Mr. Hale, are you currently employed?" Jason put on his rehearsed soft voice. "Part-time, Your Honor." "Were you working full-time before the separation?" "Yes, but the stress reduced my capability." "And this reduction in hours occurred after you left the marital home?" Jason hesitated the first crack in his act. Yeah." The judge's brows lifted. "Of your own choice to leave." Jason swallowed. "Yes, but I felt unsafe." Unsafe. That word sparked outrage in my chest, but I kept my eyes forward, jaw locked. Rachel stood with absolute calm. "Your Honor, may I present evidence?" The judge nodded. Rachel handed over a thick folder. Bank statements, screenshots. Daniel's written testimony. Jason's own messages admitting to gambling, the PDF, the timestamps. The courtroom seemed to tense. Even Jason's attorney paused. Rachel spoke smoothly. "This evidence shows a consistent pattern of online gambling over 8 months, totaling over $15,000 in losses from joint funds. After Ms. Burnett attempted to implement addiction management boundaries, Mr. Hale launched a public narrative framing her as abusive. He continued gambling after the separation, including while living in a friend's home, and has accumulated new debt totaling $12,000. Jason's face went pale. Rachel continued, "His claim of being financially controlled is disproven by his undisputed access to his own income, personal accounts, and the gambling platforms he used nightly. There is no record of emotional or physical abuse, no police reports, no restraining orders, no documented threats. This case reflects addiction, not victimization." The judge flipped through the evidence. Jason visibly squirmed. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The judge leaned forward. His voice was level. "Mr. Hale, did Ms. Burnett restrict access to your personal bank accounts?" No. "And did she restrict access to your personal paycheck?" "No." "Did she prevent you from leaving the home?" "No." He cleared his throat. "But she made me feel like—" Feelings, the judge interrupted, are not the same as evidence. A quiet gasp rippled through the courtroom. Jason's attorney shifted uncomfortably. The judge continued, "The financial restrictions Ms. Burnett implemented after discovering the significant gambling losses appear to be protective measures, not controlling ones." Jason's head dropped. "And your continued gambling after moving out," the judge added, "directly undermines your claim that the marriage was the cause of your stress." My breath hitched. He wasn't just seeing the truth, he was stating it plainly. Finally, the judge ruled swiftly. No temporary spousal support. No reimbursement of the gambling losses. Each party will pay their own legal fees during the pendency of the divorce. Marital assets are frozen until trial. Mr. Hale will secure his own housing as the apartment lease is solely in Ms. Burnett's name. There it was. The truth clear and unambiguous. Jason didn't look at me. Couldn't. His performance had failed. His mask cracked. His narrative collapsed. When the judge dismissed us, Jason stormed out first, jaw tight, shoulders trembling. His attorney followed him, whispering urgently. Rachel and I walked out calmly, each step feeling like a stone lifted from my chest. But the moment I stepped outside, Jason cornered me, rage burning behind his eyes. "You're really going to destroy me over this," he hissed. I didn't back away. Not this time. "I'm not destroying anything. You did this." He scoffed. "I have a problem. I needed help." "I tried to help," I said quietly. "You lied. You smeared my name. You weaponized your addiction against me." His eyes glistened, not with sadness, but with fury, with humiliation. "You'll regret this," he spat. "No," I said. "You regret getting caught." He froze. My voice softened, but there was no pity left in it. You had chances to take responsibility. You chose blame instead. That's on you. Jason's breath hitched. For a moment, he looked small, lost, almost childlike. But then he blinked, and that softness vanished. He turned sharply and walked away. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the tension of waiting for the next explosion. The storm had already hit. Now finally it was beginning to pass. And as I stepped forward into the sunlight, a quiet realization warmed my chest. I wasn't fighting to prove Jason wrong anymore. I was fighting to reclaim myself. The final divorce hearing came faster than either of us expected. Judges don't like wasted time, especially when one party is burning through money like gasoline on pavement. And Jason, he'd already accumulated more debt in 2 months than most people manage in a year. The courtroom was smaller this time, colder, more intimate, the kind of place where truths land heavier because there aren't enough bodies in the room to absorb the echoes. Jason sat across the aisle from me. His shoulders were slumped, his hair unstyled, his eyes rimmed red. He looked exhausted, like someone who had sprinted from crisis to crisis with no finish line in sight. A small, treacherous part of me felt the old instinct to worry. But I've learned something about my heart. Pity is not the same as love, and empathy is not an invitation to return. The judge reviewed everything swiftly, almost clinically. Gambling losses documented. Ongoing addiction undeniable. New debts overwhelming. Contradictions in Jason's claims countless. He didn't stand a chance. When the judge spoke, it was decisive. Given the dissipation of marital assets, Mr. Hale will receive 35% of the remaining assets after deducting the gambling losses. Jason flinched. No spousal support, no reimbursement. Each party responsible for their own legal fees. His attorney tried one last Hail Mary objection, something about emotional hardship, but the judge shut it down instantly. Financial irresponsibility cannot be rewarded, he said. I inhaled deep, steady freeing. It was over. Outside the courthouse, a few people lingered from our old friend group. Not many. The ones who still believed Jason didn't show up. The ones who didn't want to choose sides stayed home. But 2 of them unexpectedly approached me. Evelyn and Marcus, friends who had gone silent for weeks. Evelyn wrung her hands nervously. Catherine, I owe you an apology. Marcus nodded beside her. We both do. We believed him too quickly. We didn't ask questions. We should have. The old me. The Catherine, who always smoothed over awkward moments, would have grounded the discomfort, reassured them, taken responsibility for their guilt. But that Catherine had been burned alive in a group chat. The woman standing here now simply nodded. Thank you, I said softly. I appreciate it. I didn't offer forgiveness. I didn't offer a reunion. I accepted their words, nothing more. Some friendships do not survive truth, and that's okay. We parted ways with surprising ease. By the end of the week, everything began to settle quietly, unexpectedly. HR stopped checking in on me. Coworkers stopped giving me that sad, sideways glance. My boss started assigning me high-stakes projects again. Life resumed. My apartment became a sanctuary again, not a war zone. I bought new sheets, rearranged the living room, hung a shelf I'd been putting off for months, opened in the windows and let real air in. It felt symbolic, like exhaling for the first time in a long, suffocating stretch of months. Meanwhile, Jason spiraled. I didn't check in on him, but information has a way of finding you. He moved into a studio apartment, the cheapest one he could find, maxed out credit cards, took personal loans, borrowed money from whoever was gullible or kind enough to say yes. His parents funded his attorney under the condition that he attend a treatment program, but he didn't. They cut him off. One night, Mara's husband Daniel sent me a final update. Daniel, he's in an outpatient program now, court-mandated after a debt negotiation. He's working full-time again. It's not great, but he's functioning. Functioning. I suppose that was something. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Then, 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, my phone buzzed, with a notification I didn't expect. Jason, a single text. Jason, I'm sorry, for what it's worth. I was wrong to blame you. I was ashamed. I know you probably don't care, but I needed to say it. I sat on the couch, staring at the message like it was a ghost, finally acknowledging its own death. I waited for anger, or relief, or vindication. Something intense, something dramatic. But what I felt was nothing. Not numbness, not coldness, just nothing. Because his apology didn't fix the group chat. It didn't restore my friendships. It didn't undo the lies, the shame, the humiliation. It didn't return the nights I cried alone in my own home. It came too late to matter. I didn't respond. Not out of pettiness, but clarity. Some chapters end without dialogue. In therapy, yes, I started seeing someone. My therapist told me something. I now repeat to myself like a mantra, you don't have to forgive to move on. You just have to accept that it happened. And I have. I accepted that Jason was a man drowning in his own chaos, that I loved someone who didn't love me enough to choose honesty over shame, that people believe the first story they hear, even if it's a lie. That truth rises slowly but inevitably. And that survival sometimes means letting the truth rise on its own. Now my life is quieter, beautifully quiet. My new apartment is small but warm. My living room smells like vanilla and fresh paint. Plants sit on the windowsill, thriving alive, reaching for sunlight, the kind of peace I couldn't imagine months ago. Some nights I sit at my desk, a cup of tea warming my hands, and I think about what happened. Not with bitterness, with understanding. I learned who my real friends were, who stayed neutral until the facts came out, who vanished the moment conflict became inconvenient. And I learned this: the truth doesn't save everything, but it saves what matters.